Evening, Tiffany.
Evening.
If you have gotten nothing else from season 4 of Greening Up My Act thus far, I would hope you've noticed that we, Tiffany and I, have decided firmly that the classic American lawn is bad, okay? That's kind of the takeaway that we're pushing forward here. We've been trying to help you find solutions to cut down on the problems that lawns cause, like monoculture, overuse of fertilizer, use of pesticides, carbon output from maintenance mostly, and my personal hill that I am going to die on, water usage.
Right.
So today's solution is one of my favorites because it makes me sound like I come from the future. Are you ready for this? How's your Greek? Any good?
Oh, not. No.
It's okay. This word is a mashup of Greek and English. Anyway, but today we're talking about xeriscaping. Welcome to Greening Up My Act. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about xeriscaping because it's a word that I feel like if you didn't grow up in the arid West, you've probably never heard it, but it's super great. But I think first, perhaps, Tiffany, would you mind introducing us?
Yes. Well, I was going to say I have heard of it,
Okay,
and I don't know if it's just because I like landscaping
you
stuff.
run in green circles at landscape. Yeah, that
Yeah.
might be. Okay.
But yeah, I'm really excited about this one.
Okay.
All right. So who are we? We are two marketing writers during the day. At night,
We're Batman. Just kidding. We're not Batman at all.
I wish.
I don't. I
Um,
don't want to fight crime. That sounds awful.
that's true. And isn't
Leave the crime
everybody's
fighting
like,
to the professionals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
In the rain? No. I can podcast indoors all I want. It's great.
although being super rich would be cool too.
Yeah, I disagree. We can talk about that another
Oh
time.
well, that debatable, debatable.
Okay, okay.
So yes, we are just like also normal people, not secretly Clark Kent or anything.
Bruce Wayne.
Trying, or yeah. Well, I know that Clark Kent's not
Diana
Batman.
Prince? Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'm just naming off superheroes.
I just
Their
know
alter egos.
I guess Bat. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Bruce
We
Wayne.
don't have
Anyway,
super alter egos. You're correct. Yes.
yeah. So, I forgot where we were going with that now.
We're marketing writers by day. Yes, our day jobs. Yes.
Yes.
That's where you were going. And by
And
night,
by night, we're normal people who are just trying to figure this shit out and like be able to figure out if a product that claims to be sustainable is actually sustainable or if it's just what we call green hooey or greenwashing. And so we're trying to like mash up our skills of being normal people and also marketing writers and humans that care plus marketing writers who can kind of see through the fluff a little bit and help folks that we know and folks that we don't know yet, but hopefully we will soon. Do it on their own and on for themselves out in the
yeah,
wild. So
find more sustainable ways to live and like reduce your carbon footprint and
not spend an arm and a leg. Because
exactly.
Jiminy Christmas, who can
Oh my
afford
God.
to spend an arm and a leg
Yeah,
these
the
days?
cottage industry of green products is awful.
Yeah,
I mean,
and like
it's
who
just
has money these days? Like
vampiric. It
Jesus
just sucks
Christ.
people dry. Exactly. You don't,
Yeah.
and you feel guilty for not like choosing the $30 version of the, dishwasher pods or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we're trying to remove that guilt and
Yeah,
find,
or I will say, or not buying the wooden version of something.
yeah.
Whereas what I found, I bought the wooden brush for my dishes.
Mm-hmm.
That shit fell apart so quick. I
Yep. You just
left
gonna buy
it
another one.
sitting. Yes,
Yeah.
I left it sitting in water for like an hour and it cracked.
Yeah.
And it's just like the fact is wood isn't meant for dishes. Like,
No. Yeah.
it's the material, and I've had this other one that's plastic. I've had it for probably 8 years. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So what do
So
you think is
anyway,
better? Yeah, you're not like going to recycle the wood one and it's not compostable as much as,
well, it is
yeah.
actually. So
Okay.
that's
But
fine.
it's not going to break down like immediately. I
No,
don't know.
and I'm gonna have to buy another one if I wanted to keep
Right.
using it. So it's just like,
That's wasteful.
geez.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wasteful. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're
So,
trying to help
yeah,
y'all
we're
and ourselves.
oh yeah, and the research we really learn a lot and that's the fun of this is that we get to share what we learn and hear from you when we say things wrong. Sorry, Julia, that's my twin sister. She's very good at this, and so she's like, by the way,
By the way,
but
you're wrong about
by the
everything.
way, you were slightly incorrect about this. But I think that's kind of the joy of doing this in a community setting is that
Yes.
your input helps too. And okay, I'll go into my sources next, but one of the things we're trying to do this season is limit ourselves to 5 sources and not be because we get lost in the weeds with the science a
Oh
lot,
God,
and
yeah.
that's not what we're about. We're marketing writers. We want to use our strengths as marketing writers, so we're trying to limit the amount of research we do. So if we miss something, you
Yeah,
know,
please
please
let
let
us
us know.
know.
Yeah.
I love input and I love like chatting about this
Yeah,
stuff.
I love the
So
discussion. So,
yep.
yeah. So thank you everyone who writes in. All right, so my sources this week. PBS NewsHour. I don't think we've used them before. I love PBS NewsHour.
I don't know if we have.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So they had an article, What is Xeriscaping? How you can turn your lawn into a sustainable oasis.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Send it my way.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll like all of these articles.
Yeah.
The next one was from a website called Budget Dumpster, which I love. Budget Dumpster. How to Xeriscape on a budget for an eco-friendly yard.
Awesome. I need
Uh,
that.
e- yeah. EcoWatch, another website. They had Xeriscaping, everything you need to know. And then Deseret, is it Deseret or Desiree? It's the Mormon newspaper,
You know, I
which,
would not know.
yeah, it's out of Salt Lake City, I believe. But this one actually was archived from 1990. It's called Xeriscaping Drawbacks. Real quick article. I don't think you
Oh,
need to look at
interesting.
it. I sum it up pretty well here. And then this one is part of our bonus content for this episode because I was going to include information about rain barrels and saving water by using rain barrels, but that I think might need to be its own episode. But the bonus content will be today's homeowner states where it is illegal to collect rainwater. Bum, bum, bum. Yep.
Whoa.
So
That's a shock.
yeah, that's kind of the. You had a wasp surprise last week. I've got rain barrel surprise this week. Slightly less shocking than wasp surprise.
A little less threatening for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so what product or system are we talking about today? We are talking about Xeriscaping, which sounds like it's spelled with an X, so it's Xeri scaping. And literally, it's a mashup of Greek. The Greek word for dry is zero, and I'm not going to pronounce that right because I never studied Greek. Zero meaning dry, and then the English word scaping, like landscaping or
Yeah.
hardscaping, right? Scaping is like creating a scene, I guess. So the Denver Water Department in Denver, Colorado, coined that phrase in 1981.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's when the concept really took shape. And I don't go into the history of it here, but that's where the word comes from. It's only been around for 40 some years, 45 years.
Since water's been a real issue.
Well, yeah, since we started, yeah, I think that's about when
I mean, I guess it's
uh,
always been an issue in
it
certain
has,
areas.
we just didn't know. And I think that's
Yeah.
something in the 1950s, for instance, when they built a lot of the western cities like Albuquerque. They have aquifers underground that refill through a permeable layer. And so in the 50s and 60s, they told everyone, oh, yeah, we'll just pump water out of the aquifer forever because they
Yeah.
thought it just refilled from snowmelt. But then they found that it actually takes a lot longer. It takes thousands of years for that water to
Yeah.
refill. And so there isn't groundwater in the West like they thought it was. So,
Right. It's
um,
very scary.
yeah.
I know that there was at least one person, because I've seen a documentary, who was warning against inhabiting these areas,
Yeah.
and nobody listened. So
Yeah. I mean, and that, yeah, it was just a thing where they're like, oh no, these aquifers, God gave us aquifers, I guess, is kind of this hubris that people had in the 50s and 60s. And it's like, no, there's not water there. And yeah, a lot of my eco conscious friends who work in conservation are talking about, again, moving away from New Mexico, Texas, West Texas, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, parts of California,
Utah.
Utah for sure, and
Yeah.
southern Colorado. I mean, even parts of northern Colorado, there's just not going to be water.
Yeah.
And it's, well, we'll
It's
get into that
terrifying.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's very terrifying. So if you grew up in the desert like I did, New Mexico, you've probably heard xeriscaping thrown around. It's kind of a buzzword. But even if you grew up somewhere lush and green like Maryland or Indiana or Illinois,
Yeah.
um, it's something you should probably learn about because it's a type of landscaping that focuses on using native plants and processes to limit the amount of water needed to keep the landscaping alive.
Okay.
So most people think it's cactuses and rocks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's what I thought.
Yes, but it literally just means trying to find ways to reduce how much water you need to put onto your lawn to make it survive.
Okay.
So it's building landscaping around your local rainfall, right? So that it doesn't have to be cactuses because cactuses wouldn't live in Maryland if you planted them
Yeah.
outside anyway. Yeah. So again, in desert areas, basically the idea is to change your front lawn into a space that looks more like the surrounding natural environment.
Yeah. That's cool.
So in New Mexico, this could mean rocks and cactuses or shrubs. We have a lot of native plants that grow. New Mexico is actually a lot greener than people think it is. There's a lot of shrubs and non-spiky plants that won't kill you. But you can do this in non-desert places too and just plant native plants that will survive on the local rainwater.
Nice.
So I think it's a really important concept that should spread beyond the desert west and come east.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do because I don't like watering my
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to to get it established, but
Right.
once it's
Well, yeah, once it's there. And we'll get into this. I mean it basically what I'm thinking is a wildflower lawn is xeriscaping, right?
yeah,
It's a type of xeriscaping.
right.
Hardscaping.
If you live where
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
place where wildflowers grow. Like planting local native plants is xeriscaping. Creating hardscaping that reroutes water to help plants. That's part of xeriscaping too. So xeriscaping is kind of this overarching idea that I think we should all probably be adopting in landscaping.
Yeah, probably.
But let me get into that when I get to the granola rating. Spoiler alert! Okay, so what eco-friendly claims are they making? The biggest one that I, as a New Mexican, is that it saves water. I'm just going to throw out some statistics regarding water to back up why it is important to save water. At least 40 states in the U.S. could face freshwater shortages by this year.
40
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. I mean, this article I think was written a few years ago. So, yeah, in the next few years. Only about 3% of Earth's water is fresh water. 2/3 of the planet is covered by water, and it's salt water mostly. About 30 to 60% of all household water use is used outdoors. That's 9 billion gallons a day, primarily to irrigate lawns and gardens. So
Oh my god.
yeah, that should be the first place we're thinking of. I mean, like, sure, you can cut down on your shower. You can cut down, get a dishwasher instead of hand washing your dishes. All these things. But not watering a lawn will cut back on wasting water a lot.
Wow.
So the next eco-friendly claim they have is that it encourages the use of local native plants, which has several eco-friendly claims. For instance, encouraging biodiversity instead of monoculture, reducing the need for pesticides and fertilizer, etc. All claims we saw with wildflower lawns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, another one that we've seen with many of the systems that we have been promoting or talking about this season, reduces the need for maintenance, which reduces, again, your carbon output by not using gas-powered lawnmowers or leaf blowers. This all depends on what kind of xeriscaping you do, of course, but in general, it can reduce your need for those machines.
Okay.
Next eco-friendly claim is that it encourages you to learn about and appreciate local plant life.
Okay, I am obsessed with that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's
amazing. Yeah.
I making you aware of your local the way your local ecology works. Yeah. Why not? We should all
That's huge.
do that. Yeah.
Definitely.
And a not eco-related, but kind of hoo-ha, hooray, um, benefit of xeriscaping is that it can increase your property value by up to 15%. They claim.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's the claim.
Huh. Is
Okay.
that just landscaping in general or specifically like this type
Yeah.
of
Well,
landscaping?
so that's the thing is I couldn't find numbers of and we'll go
Yeah.
into that. But I think it's also because people are starting to look for houses where they don't have to do lawn maintenance.
Low
They
maintenance,
want
yeah.
established landscaping, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
if you say moving into this place will cut your water bill by 30%,
Right.
or like solar power is
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
this will cut your electricity bill, this will cut your water bill. Like it's already done for you and you don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of the increase in I mean, and it looks better ideally.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, I believe is a good time to take a break before I go into what's backing up these claims.
Alrighty. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Okay, so we just went over all the eco-friendly claims about xeriscaping, and um, does anything back up these claims? Yeah. I mean, basically, it's the same with wildflower lawns, but yeah, water usage. Does xeriscaping reduce water usage? Yeah, that's the point. EcoWatch quoted a study by LA County Public Works that said xeriscaping can cut your water usage by 50%.
Whoa.
And, I that's amazing. So I guess in most xeriscaping instances, yeah, you still do have to water some, but you use
Mm-hmm.
drip systems rather than just going out there with your hose.
Okay.
And if you do it right, like with the wildflower stuff, you also will use local rainwater to water your plants
Okay.
and rely on that. And so it's a lot less water. Again, just reiterating, another benefit they said was that you're using local plants. Yeah, we covered this in wildflowers. Planting local plants increases biodiversity, period, because it's the stuff that's made, has evolved in your landscape over thousands of years. It's going to attract local insects, bees that we talked about last
Yeah,
week.
there's probably a bee that likes
Yeah.
it.
Hummingbirds, bees,
Mm-hmm.
other insects, which will attract other wildlife
Mm-hmm. Birds.
and other
Yeah.
plants.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, again, depending on what kind of xeriscaping you do, but a wildflower lawn will attract other plants like almost 2 or 3 times as many, or was it 20 times as many as
That's
you planned in the
right.
first
That was
place?
wild.
If you let it
Yeah.
go wild. Now, xeriscaping
Yeah.
generally, like, I'm thinking of my parents. My growing up in New Mexico, we had a front lawn, and it was literally the lawn, like, I don't know. I don't know how big it was. Probably 10 feet by 15 feet,
Mm-hmm.
pretty large front lawn on a hill. And my parents had it xeriscaped with hardscaping and native plants like butterfly bushes, um, sage, Spanish broom, all these like local plants that grow really well in New Mexico. Salvia back in 2007, 2008. And I think of that now and like they have landscapers come out and trim everything. And like now it's really established and beautiful, but they have little drip plants. So we'll talk about that. That's not a wildflower lawn. It is local native hardy plants that take a lot less water. Hardscaping again, they have instead of just
Mm-hmm.
the sloping lawn, they have steps coming up and it's like
Okay.
but it's very different now and definitely my dad doesn't have to mow it, which he loves. But
Yes.
yeah. Um you definitely don't need to fertilize native plants the same way you need to fertilize a lawn. That's a given. Like I don't even need to go into the science of that.
Yeah.
It's the kind of fertilizer that lawns need is very different from what local plants would need.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a lot more of it instead of just groups of little plants that need a little bit of fertilizer, whatever to make them grow. You're not doing just covering a lawn.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid growing up, my dad got one of those push things to push the fertilizer, and it's just the full lawn. Took him all day.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Now, one issue, herbicides and pesticides might be an issue again, due to what type of xeriscaping you do. Weed control is apparently a big issue, and we'll get into that
Okay. Yeah.
when we talk about, is this something people could do? EcoWatch says, though, regarding maintenance, they quoted a study from Waterwise, Colorado, that said using xeriscaping instead of a lawn can reduce your maintenance costs by up to 60%. So yeah.
I totally believe it.
Yeah. I mean,
'Cause
you
it's
might.
like a couple times a year rather than like every other week.
Yeah, well, I think my parents get their stuff done every other week, but they don't have to trim every shrub every other week. I think
Right.
because I think my dad still kept some lawn in the back, and so they
Oh,
mow the
okay.
lawn,
Well, yeah.
and they might blow some leaves,
Yeah.
because leaves fall and whatever. But yeah, you're not having to fertilize it every
Yeah.
whatever, and you're not. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on what kind of xeriscaping you do. Again, and this should not be confused with like leave the leaves or the wildflower lawn movements, which are kind of can sometimes be, I guess, again, it depends on which route you go, but sometimes wildflower lawn has a connotation of let it go rather than maintain it. And so that's different. That's not necessarily what xeriscaping is about.
Right.
Not mutually exclusive, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to get into some of the issues with xeriscaping. Is this something a normal person could do or afford? Maybe. Maybe. Biggest
Maybe
issue.
those budget tips.
Yep. Cost. Cost is the biggest issue. So
Okay.
EcoWatch claimed that it costs about $5 to $20 per square foot to xeriscape. That's a pretty broad range. And it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But they say, however, it will save you money over time. Again, water, maintenance costs. Once you get it established, you don't have to keep replanting it. Grass needs a lot more work than xeriscaping. So this is where Deseret, the Salt Lake City news came into play. They had those problems with xeriscaping. So one thing they pointed out is that weed control is the biggest issue. If you're going to have an attractive xeriscaped feature landscape, even in desert areas, natural rainfall will encourage weeds to grow.
Right.
So this can make your carefully sculpted xeriscaped outdoor areas look like an HOA's nightmare. And another thing is that a lot of weeds that grow are invasive. So you're not
Tell
just
me
going to be
about it.
Yes, you're not just going to be inviting native plants to grow. You're going to be inviting non-native, invasive, horrible plants to grow.
Yes. I have
They
one in particular that
Yeah.
won't leave me alone. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, so this is where the herbicide issue comes in. They suggested using pre-emergence herbicides, which I would not say that we're going to promote. We haven't done a lot of discussion on that. I don't think it's you've talked about like organic or quote unquote natural solutions to like pesticides and herbicides. So there may be an answer out there that isn't like kill them all.
Right.
Like don't use Roundup, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's like a little DIY solution that does work. It's like salt, soap, water, soap like hand soap, not hand
Yeah.
soap, dish soap,
Yeah.
water, and something else. And you spray it on in a hot sunny day, and it's gone. Whatever you spray it on will die. But you don't want to spray that anywhere that you want to grow something later.
Yes, because you
so-
can't. Yeah, salting the earth
Yeah.
means you can't grow things. We learned that. Yes,
Yeah.
don't salt the earth. So yeah, okay. So that is something you can do, but you have to be careful about it. They say mulches and weed barriers can help too.
Yeah. I've heard
yeah.
mixed reviews on weed barriers. I
Yeah,
think they're,
I
like,
have.
not great in
I
general.
have used
but-
them, and I'm not sure. It just depends on.
Yeah, I think
It's kind of
like
just trash.
Yeah, exactly, and they are not going anywhere. Which I guess is the point. But
Yeah. So, I mean, use them in very curated flower beds, I guess. But okay, another thing again, and this comes up time and again when we're talking about landscaping. Time.
yeah,
It can take a long time to get plants established, even in their native environment, and your landscaping could look barren and dull until it comes to fruition. So it's
Yeah.
not going to be pretty. Even plants, okay, and then this is another thing, when you're xeriscaping, plants that don't use a lot of water actually take longer to get established. They need deeper roots.
okay,
They grow more slowly, so it just is going to take a while. You'll probably need to water the plants to get them established for the first few years, in fact. So you may also have a learning curve where you accidentally kill off your plants if you treat them like normal lawns by watering them or fertilizing them too much, which can
Okay.
add to the time it takes. So those are all considerations. And then design. We talked about this with hardscaping and with wildflowers, any kind of lawn. Xeriscaping takes more work to design because you need to group plants together by their needs, right?
Right.
Soil, water, sun. Those are all considerations you have to have. You've got to know your plants. You got to know your soil. You got to know where they go, or you've got to be able to hire someone who knows all that.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you're just setting yourself up to fail. If you put a plant that needs full sun and draining soil in a marshy wetland in the shade, it's not going to succeed. So,
Yeah. I have several things that I put in my front bed that I'm like, now I look back, I'm like, oh, these are supposed
whoops.
to be in full sun, and it's like
Yep.
pretty shady over here. So I'm gonna try to replant them because
You
most of them
know,
are still alive, but we'll see.
I've planted things before and been, or like, I inherited a snake plant, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, just leave those things alone." If I don't water it every week on the nose at the exact same time, it dies. And I'm like, so sometimes just like your own plants might, I don't know, something.
They're out to get you.
Yeah, there's something going on there. So anyway, sometimes I'm surprised. Like I've definitely planted plants in places where they shouldn't be, and they
Yeah.
thrive.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Yeah, so
It's like
it happens.
accidentally, like, oh, our raspberry patch is like literal weeds. Like I have to pull out probably 40 plants every year. My
Wow.
brother-in-law and my mother-in-law have both tried to grow the same ones that I gave them
Yeah.
and they just do
They won't
not
do it.
grow
Yeah.
at all. And I'm like, man, I thought that they were easy because they were like taking off like crazy over here.
It's something with your soil or your water. Who knows? Yeah.
I don't know.
The birds around there. The bees. It's the bees.
It's the bees. Yeah. All
Your
those
native
honeybees, maybe.
Oh, it might be. Yeah. PBS pointed out you can use non-native plants that grow in similar climates
Okay.
for xeriscaping. However, again, you may be creating an invasive species issue.
Well, that's the problem.
Yep. I quote from this article. Purple loosestrife, for example, was introduced to America in the 1800s as an ornamental garden plant, but has evolved into an invasive species in wetlands.
Love
One
it.
individual plant is able to produce and distribute 2.7 million seeds in a year. Invasive species can eventually outgrow local plants and ultimately contribute to their extinction. And they
Jesus
quoted an
Christ.
expert that says if an area becomes overrun with an invasive plant, there's no biodiversity. So maybe stick to native local plants.
Yeah, I
Which-
accidentally
Mhm.
planted an invasive. I bought it at my local nursery, but my dad came over and he's like, I'm going to dig that up. He's a landscaper. He's like, I'm going to dig that up and throw that in the trash right now.
Wow,
You
okay.
don't want that. And
It's
I was like,
amazing.
I didn't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, that's my next point. Finding the plants.
Yeah.
Even local nurseries
Yes.
don't know what's local or native.
Yeah. It's like, why
And-
did you sell me this?
Yeah, yeah. And even though xeriscaping is becoming increasingly popular, people aren't demanding local native plants as much as they should be.
Yeah.
So we're like planting petunias and roses, and so your local nursery might not have them, and definitely not the box stores, and they're
Right.
not going to have the expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have that research done yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
And last but not least, it's the old HOA problem.
Oh, God.
People in your neighborhood might not be cool with how quote unquote unkempt your xeriscaping looks. We still have a romance with the classic American lawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on your design. Again, we've spoken about this in the wildflower lawn episode. The EPA has a great guide on greening up your HOA, invading them, taking over, and
Love it.
bringing them around to the light. But also, states like Colorado and Texas have actually passed laws preventing HOAs from making anti-xeriscaping rules. So if you live in those states, you can tell them to suck it. But you've
Good,
also got to
okay.
know about those regulations.
Right.
Be knowledgeable to talk about it and be like, look, it's saving me $400 or, let's say your water bill every summer is $300 a month. You cut it back to $150 because you're only, sprinkler lining sometimes instead of
Does that
mass
happen?
watering.
A $300 water bill?
Yes, that can happen.
Oh My God.
If you live in a state where they upcharge during summer months because of drought,
Oh my God, I've only ever had like a $15 water bill.
you have a $15 water bill?
I don't have a water bill right now because we have a well. But yeah, when I was living in an apartment in near here, it was like 15 bucks. I had a
Wow.
$6 one once.
When I lived in an apartment, we had usually water was covered because you don't have any. You're
Yeah.
not going to water a lawn or anything.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, but I pay
But still,
probably.
I lived in a house.
I
We
think I
didn't
pay.
water our lawn really, but
I pay about $40 a month for water for two
okay.
people showering and doing
That
dishes
seems
and
more
laundry.
reasonable, but
Yeah, well,
wow.
but like if you water a lawn, again, 60 to 30 to 60% of your water usage is outside.
Wow.
People can have really big water bills.
Okay, that's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, let's just say even a $150 water bill because you water your lawn 5 times a week, whatever.
Right.
Cutting back on that,
Yeah.
coming down to a $40 water bill.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, now your favorite thing ever, budget dumpster. Love them. They recommend a few tips for xeriscaping on a budget. Okay,
Yes.
here they are. Literally do it yourself. Design it, plant it yourself. Again, that's going to take research and time and back-breaking labor. But that
Call your
is
friends in. That's what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
That's
like,
they
"Please
recommend
help
that. Throw a pizza party.
Yes.
That's literally going to save you the most money, hands down. EcoWatch had a link to the National Wildlife Federation's database or the USDA's hardiness map to help you find native plants based on your location. So there's
Nice.
some research pre-started for you. The next thing they recommend is to buy seeds and plant cuttings instead of fully formed new plants. That can be cheaper, takes longer.
Seeds, yes. I tried to find cuttings or like the little tiny are they called cuttings? I don't. They might be. They're like the palette of like tiny little plants. I couldn't find them anywhere because I was trying to go cheap, and it was like you had to be. You could only buy them in like by the thousands or something.
Yeah,
shit.
that's
So,
for major landscaping projects,
yeah.
right? I've considered going up to the creek up by my house and just pulling. There's some really cool bulb plants there that I don't know if they're native, but I just kind of want to be like yoink and like really pretty purple flowers that I just want to have. So I've considered just grab it, like pull them out of the ground. There's plenty up there. They weren't intentionally planted either, so
Right.
but
Or you
I
could
go back and
try
forth.
it. I
Yeah,
don't know. Yeah.
just get one and see if it'll grow. I definitely have volunteers of lantana, I think it's called, that have just popped up in my yard, and I love them.
Oh,
and
cool.
They're great. Yeah. So,
Nice.
choose plants that grow more quickly. That's going to take again more research, but that'll help. You'll feel better about it. Avoid concrete slabs and boulders, which are pricey, and opt
Yes.
for like smaller things like shells and pebbles
Okay.
for hardscaping. Make your own mulch. Which
How?
Yeah, they didn't give a step-by-step guide on that.
God.
That was one thing. My friends who were they took out a bunch of their lawn and created a patio in Salt Lake City the last time I was out there visiting. One thing they did was they took down a pear tree and wood chipped it and then used that
Oh, yeah.
for mulch.
Yes, but you need a tree. Yeah. No, I
There.
get it.
Get your own tree, cut it down, make sure it's a tree that's non-native and takes too much water. I think their tree
Right.
was dead too, which helped. But
Yeah. No, I have seen people do that on like Instagram or something.
yeah. Well, I
But-
think you could make your own mulch from the leaves too. Rake up your leaves. And
That's true. Yeah.
Either run the lawnmower over them or just use them as they are and make mulch from that.
Yeah.
Another,
My neighbor does that and it looks really good.
yeah,
It's like it looks really good. Yeah.
yeah. So another recommendation they had was to only xeriscape a little bit at a time. Don't do it all at once. You can keep some of your lawn like my dad did.
I think most people would.
Yeah,
most people
especially-
aren't gonna only have
Yeah.
native or like flowers or like
Yeah.
nowhere to run or whatever.
Yeah, especially if you live in a place where there's rainfall. Like the reason we have a romance with lawns is because most of our ancestors, we who are white, came from places where lawns grew naturally, like England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Europe, France. Lawns grow naturally there. So that's where it came from. And they grow fine. Yeah, if you're in Scotland, grow a lawn. If you're in Maryland, grow a lawn. If you're in New Mexico, maybe don't grow a lawn.
Right.
Grow a smaller lawn. So yeah, my dad still has a little lawn in the backyard.
Yeah. No, I think that was what the whole lawn consensus was. Like, lawns themselves aren't evil. It's just like limiting them is the best move. Like, nobody should be saying no lawn. You cannot have a lawn, or you're like an immoral human. Like whatever,
Right.
which some people are trying to say.
Yeah, people do go to that extreme.
But I think that's kind of crazy because if you have a dog or a kid, they're not just going to be anteloping through they can, but you want them to be able to actually run
Play
around,
baseball,
kick a ball,
not get ticks, and a little patch of grass is nice. I think balance is key.
Yes.
Another thing to reduce the cost of xeriscaping is to install efficient drip systems, so you're not hand watering, and so you don't overwater. If it's set on a timer, and especially if you can get one of the new modern systems that since when the land is dry and water then,
nice.
rather than just on a timer. Yeah. So if it's raining, it won't water, which is cool.
Are those things expensive? Do you know?
Yeah, they can be. Yeah. It depends. There's like if you get the whole like the people I hired to look at like redoing all of my landscaping, who were quoted me $40,000, had a whole system that was like attached to like a smartphone thing, and it was like different zones. But you can buy things on Amazon that you just stick a thing into the ground, and
that's what I figured. Yeah,
those are cheaper. They're not cheap, but they're less expensive than a whole system.
Not everything needs to be $10, but
no, maybe 150, 200.
Okay.
We'll have to look.
Yeah.
One last thing. Apply for a turf replacement rebate if you live in a state that offers them.
Ooh.
So states like Texas and Colorado and New Mexico encourage their constituents to get rid of lawns, and they will, kind of like a solar power credit or an electric vehicle credit, you can get a tax rebate for getting rid of your lawn. So look into that in your state and see if they do that if you're going to start xeriscaping. So.
Nice.
Okay, our next question that we're asking this season is, does the earth-friendly message need to come back to Earth? I'm going to say no. I think xeriscaping is the landscape design of the future, for sure.
Yeah.
It encompasses other solutions we've talked about, like hardscaping, wildflower lawns, all of that. It definitely saves on water, which is the hill I will die on, and reduces the need for a lot of carbon-heavy maintenance. Plus fertilizers, pesticides, all of that. It has all of the bonuses of most of the systems we've talked about that are great. The only real issues with it are accessibility, again, due to time and money, which are fair. But again, mitigated by you can do xeriscaping a little bit at a time. And you can also, if you... A friend of mine said, this season's kind of been rough because it's all about kind of homeowner stuff. And I agree. And we have tried to point out that, like, you can grow an herb garden in your apartment. It is hard to say, like, oh, you live in an apartment, you can xeriscape. Not really. You could probably encourage the owners of your apartment to xeriscape,
right,
with these ideas, and bring it to them and be like, look, let's save water. So there's that. I don't think you're going to xeriscape your back patio, or your fire escape per se.
Yeah.
But again, we've talked about, like, one of the things about this is being aware of what your local native plants are. And so, for instance, if you can do potted plants in the little area in your front door or in your window that would attract local native pollinators, like local bees and hummingbirds, do it, learn about xeriscaping, even if you don't own a home.
Yeah, or try to join like a community garden. Yeah. That's what I would have done if we had gone back to renting. Yeah,
spread the love, spread the word. And join, city council on trying to get xeriscaping to be part of your city's goals. Like, cities waste a shit ton of, pardon my French, a shit ton of water on... How dare you say shit on this podcast. On this clean podcast of ours. Clutch my pearls. But like medians don't need to be watered. Xeriscape
Yeah.
the medians, If anywhere that there's sprinklers, like public parks, yes. I love a good lawn for a public park, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to be watering medians or,
Yeah. And plus, it
like,
would look nicer if it was
yes, it would,
like,
because then they don't have to mow it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, think about it. Of course, weed maintenance is a big deal again, but
Mm-hmm. That's true.
anyway, I closed with this one. Water scarcity is becoming a major issue around the world, and educating ourselves on our water use, limiting it however we can, and helping others learn about it is the best thing we can do. And that is the spirit of Xeriscaping. So I don't think it needs to come back to Earth.
Yes, I agree.
Perfect. Now we come to our granola rating, or green hui meter, as we sometimes call it, which is something we do every week when we discuss a process, system, product, whatever it is. We rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 granolas, 1 being bad, 5 being good. It's a crunchiness scale based on how much green hui the product or system relies on. So how crunchy are their claims? We have the scale goes from 1, which is soggy, 2 is mushy, 3 is chewy, 4 is crunchy, and 5 is break your tooth off. And then somehow
That's you type it in.
I just realized it had deleted it from this for some reason, and I realized I had given this the wrong rating.
Uh-oh.
But break your tooth off is the best. So I'm giving this a 4 out of 5, which
Nice.
is crunchy. And again, only because of the cost issues and the time, which I think are worth it. But again, accessibility is something that I think is important. And we've talked about this a lot this season, but if you're not a homeowner, like, yeah, these aren't really solutions you can do to live a greener life, you know? So that doesn't make it the world-saving thing it could possibly be. Not everyone in the entire world can Xeriscape,
Yeah.
So, but I am going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
It really is the wave of the future,
I love
I
it.
think. Yeah.
I love it. I think that's great. And I will say also, there's this guy, you've probably seen him on Instagram. He's got so many followers. The Frenchy Gardener.
Yeah.
He just has a rooftop. And
Yeah.
again, that's a lot of space with a lot of sun. But
Right.
like, he has so many plants
Yeah.
there. It's
I
wild.
think people who get into gardening will find a way.
I think so.
Yeah, I think even my friend, and Maria was the woman I was hanging out with, who was saying, yeah, this season's been kind of for homeowners. She's an apartment, she lives in an apartment in LA. She doesn't really have windows she could plant in.
Okay.
But she works at like a local ecological center educating children about bugs.
Oh, that's so cool.
So you find a way, like she's definitely very into local biology.
Yeah.
And people who are green and nature centered are going to do that even in urban areas. And
Yes.
I love that. And the more learning about these processes, even if you're never going to own a home, like, it's great to talk about it at parties with friends and kind of spread the word,
Yeah, or even like we have a new library going up. Like
Yeah.
making sure that they're thinking about this type of stuff.
Yeah. Going to your city council meetings and being like, hey, could that new office park not waste water? Let's find a solution that looks good, feels good, saves the city water,
Yeah.
saves
Yeah,
everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
So-
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of bonus content this week, because I was going to do water saving processes for landscaping, and I was going to do a thing about rain barrels. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I will
That
tell
would
you
be a
something.
whole-
Yeah, I have rain barrels or rain harvesting, rain collection is a process by which you get water into a collection system, a cistern or a rain barrel, for instance. Usually have it run from your gutters into this rain thing, and then some people in off the grid situations might treat it and use it to drink potable water or to shower with, etc. The easiest thing to do is just use it to like water your lawn.
Yeah.
And depending on the system you use, so I have very passive rain barrels. I have 2. One came with the house. It was in the backyard. And then I added another one when I had to redo all of my gutters. And that collects water in the front. And so I both of them just collect water from the gutters, spout down
Mm-hmm.
into them, and they don't have pumps or any treatment in them. I can take the tops off and like any leaves that get stuck in the mesh up top, I can drop like a mosquito killer thing in it, which I
Mm-hmm.
do once every 6 months.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's not a pump, so you can't like use a sprinkler. Like you don't have water pressure, but I fill up a water can and I water
Mm-hmm.
tomatoes or I water, my flowers. And I do that in the front and the back.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, you can get one with a spigot, no pump system. It's not going to be potable water. Again, it's only for watering plants outside. But you can get one on Amazon for 110 to 150 bucks.
Okay.
I have a link to the one I have, and we'll put that in our show notes. Um, I learned some interesting facts about it though when I was looking into it. So one thing was a guy that I was dating was like, I was like, oh, I got a new rain barrel, da, da, da. And he's like, isn't it illegal to collect rainwater?
Yes. Oh my God. You said this. I
So
forgot
I
that
went,
this was true.
I what? So rainwater harvesting or collection using rain barrels is very common, easy process. Um, Many states have regulations concerning rainwater collection, and this depends on a whole host of issues. So, for instance, water rights, which is something that wars have been fought over in the West, and I think
Mm-hmm.
will get even more persnickety as we
Yeah.
move into the future. In a lot of drier states, they might encourage you to collect rainwater so you don't use municipal sources to water your lawn or whatever, right? However, if you live in a state with historical water rights, where, for instance, they have to sell, this is interesting, and somebody who knows about water rights explain this, but like the Rio Grande River,
Mm-hmm.
the river, big river in New Mexico, the Rio Grande, they sold their water rights to downstream to Texas years and years and years ago. And so we have to, we cannot collect certain amounts of water from the river in New Mexico. It has to go on to Texas. Or, for instance, there are, like when I moved to northern New Mexico, there are plots of land that have acequias, which are kind of these ditches that run through the back, and
Mm-hmm.
you get a certain amount of water with the land from the acequia,
Oh wow.
guaranteed. So that's how water rights work. If you live in a place that's regulated like that, you can't collect the rainwater because it technically
Wow.
doesn't belong to you, which is fascinating.
Wow.
So I there's so much going into that I think we should probably do an episode on water rights
Mm-hmm.
in the West at some point in the future, because I don't understand it. And there, the today's homeowner article I read, they listed out like what states have regulations, but like for instance, it says Texas has a regulation where you have to notify about having a rain barrel, which I haven't done. I wonder if the people who lived here before me did. I don't
Right.
know what kind of illegal activity I'm engaging in. But so I have to do some digging on the nitty gritty of those regulations and laws, and how they work.
Yeah.
So
But it's one of those things that you're probably not going to do for like 5 years. So we're just not going to think about it.
yeah, there we go. Well, if I get arrested off the show, you'll know why. So she was
Exactly.
stealing water from the state of Texas.
Yeah, you're going to get a knock on the door tonight.
Yeah, well,
Catherine Cox.
yeah. I mean, it is interesting because it's so easy to just buy it off of friggin'
Yeah.
Amazon.
I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, and I don't have like a homeowners association. I don't know. I don't know who I would
Yeah.
notify about it. So I need to
Mm-hmm.
call the city and ask. Probably get myself in trouble. But in the meantime, I might recommend you can collect the water in your shower with a bucket while you're waiting for it to heat up and water plants with that. That's one way to save water.
Yeah.
But
That's cool. Or,
yeah.
like I said, my dehumidifier
Yes.
produces shitloads of water
Yeah. There's got to be a way to,
in the summer.
yeah. And you just pour that on your lawn.
Yeah.
And that's when you need the watering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, rain barrels. Dug something fun up there. But yeah. So I have next week that you are going to tell us about compost.
Mm-hmm. And what to do with it. How to use it.
I'm excited about that.
I am too, because the more I started composting because of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like so confused about it before I started. And now I'm kind of obsessed. Not just
Are
with
you
composting, but compost itself. So,
Oh, fascinating. Okay, I can't wait. I'm stoked.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Awesome. Well, sometimes we hit the wrong buttons.
Let me try the right one.
There we go. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and joining us on this journey tonight. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, and thank you, Kat.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I wanted to mention we were supposed to figure out our Patreon, and we haven't done it yet. But
We will. Probably by next season.
Probably.
We're just going to keep teasing it.
We are tired, so.
Yeah, this has been a tired year. But like and subscribe, and consider the Patreon for the future. And we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, bye.